scout with interviews, breaking news, separate lies from the truth with the room of proof. Follow your team from the draft through the playoffs, no layoff. We stay on the story to pay off. It's 24/7 football at your fingertips. Watch, read, or listen. Blitzalytics bringing it. Blitzalytics proudly presents Jack and George. Welcome to the Blitz. Welcome to the Blitz, y'all.
That's right. Welcome into the Blitz Breakdown, presented by Blitzalytics.com, where scouting meets analytics and you meet the newest crop of off-field talent. I am your host, Jack Bourgeois, and today I am joined by a special guest, someone who has not been on the Blitz Breakdown before, and it is long overdue. So without further ado, we might as well introduce you guys to Mr. Zach Gartin, Blitzalytics lead scout or senior scout. Has been with us for over a year now. Somebody who is producing some awesome content and awesome reports for us. Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm happy to be on. It's a blast to be here.
Glad to have you. You know, it's always nice to get to bring on somebody new from the Blitz team and talk a little football. It's been some crazy back and forth action over the last week or two. I mean, there is a lot of this year more than ever. I feel like this is the most top heavy season ever. You know, trying to discuss who are the top teams, or trying to decipher who the top teams are, or who are the teams that are going to be making that playoff push. You know, here in a month or two, especially with the 3 wild card spots being open.
Oh yeah.
I am very, very excited to see what happens. What's been before we get into that, give the people a little bit about you. You know, where you're from, what exactly it is you do, you know, for Blitz, and you know what your expertise is.
All right. So I came to Blitz a little over a year ago, like you said. Really with not a ton of experience in writing and scouting, but I really wanted to get into it, and you guys give me a really good platform to do that. I'm a former football player. I played safety and wide receiver in high school. Played safety for 2 years in college. Things like that happen in football. But then I moved on, decided I wanted to get into sports journalism, started writing first about the AAF when that was around for like half a season. And then I lashed onto the XFL and did my own podcast there, hence the Guardians hat, for another half a season. I seem to have bad luck with those spring football leagues before deciding, you know what, I'm going to stick with something that's actually going to stay around, and decided to cover the NFL and the NFL draft. And you guys gave me a platform to do that. At Blitz, like you said, I'm a senior scout. I'm doing a lot of the scouting reports, working on that, working my way through that. My expertise really is in wide receiver and defensive back play. That's where I have the most experience. It's where I have the most fun watching. You can always find my weekly, I didn't have one last week because of family stuff, but weekly post-corner articles where I break down one of my favorite receivers from the week. I do my charting. I talk about his film from the All-22, and really give an in-depth look on why he was playing well and if he will continue to play well.
Yeah, you did one just the other week on my boy Mike Evans, and I liked it. It was a good breakdown. So you guys definitely give this guy's Twitter a look over. Where can they find you out on Twitter? At
all22_addict. I recently changed it because I didn't like my old one, and I thought this one was better.
Well, I'm right there with you. I am an all-22 addict myself, man. If I could just break down game film, you know, all day, all week, I would be, you know, so happy. I hate the business side of things. All I want to do is just watch football. That's all I want to do. If I get paid to just watch football, I mean, I'd be a happy man. But we do have quite a few topics to get into. We're going to give you guys 5 total topics today, and the first one being the top team in the AFC. Now, as you guys can see on the screen, I gave my personal rankings. We're going to let Zach figure out his as well. Looks like we're having a little bit of an NDI issue. But initially, my thoughts over this past weekend was whoever beat the team between the Titans and the Steelers could easily insert themselves into the top dog category. But it's the Chiefs. The Chiefs had a quick rebound game after losing to the Vegas Raiders. Still hard to say Vegas Raiders.
Oh, I know, it's weird.
So from the Vegas Raiders to then going into Denver, or they were either in Denver at home. I think they're in Denver because it was snowing. They put a whooping on the Denver Broncos. I do think that, again, it was a divisional game. The Raiders are a lot better than people have been giving them credit for. including people at Blitzalytics. So I've been saying they're good, but they weren't good enough to beat my Bucs this last weekend. But I do think that until somebody can really prove that they are the number one seed, until they can prove that they are better than KC, regardless if they don't have an L in the loss column at all, I just don't see the Steelers being the top seed. The way the Steelers won was in ugly fashion. It was against a Titans team that came roaring back, and if not for a Gostkowski missed field goal, we could be talking about the Titans as this number one team and number one seed. I think the Titans are a little bit more, or as equally well-rounded as both the Steelers and the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think it's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if you look at Patrick Mahomes, what he's been able to do over not in the last, just this year, but the last couple years, and the way he's not turning the ball over, I think that's the biggest thing. Big Ben continuously turned the ball over and allowed the Titans to come back in that game. If that's the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't have any question about it, that even if they were down 21, that, come playoff time, they will come back. Now, Steelers have a hell of a defense. They do have the best defense out of any of these four teams right here on this list. I just don't think it is good enough to dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs just yet. If the Chiefs continue to look human, which we have seen them look human quite a bit this season, I would maybe be willing to kind of change this or rethink that. But at this point, it's just they're so much better of a team just because of the offensive weapons, just because they added Le'Veon Bell, because of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They have the ground game going. I don't see how we can put even I struggle to put the Buccaneers above KC. The Kansas City Chiefs are the best team until proven otherwise, and I just haven't been proven otherwise to this point yet. Do you agree with me? What's your take on where the Steelers are being the undefeated team, the only undefeated team left in the AFC and NFC?
I do think they're second, and the reason I think the Chiefs lost to the Raiders last week is because the Raiders are built to beat the Chiefs. They can be a little sticky in man coverage, make things a little bit harder for Patrick Mahomes in that sense. And then also they can just keep up with Patrick Mahomes because of the offensive weapons they have. And Derek Carr is playing at a really high level for some reason. Like compared to past years, he's really taken a step forward. And I think they're uniquely built to beat the Chiefs in that sense. I don't know about the Steelers. The Steelers are really good in that front seven with T.J. Watt and Devin White and all those. When Devin White was healthy, I think it's Devin White. It's Devin White or Devin Bush. I always mix those two up. But one of those two guys, they're very good in the middle in the front seven, but their defensive backs outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick can tend to be a little bit rough. Their corners have really taken a step back from last year in man coverage opportunities. And I think Patrick Mahomes will be able to take advantage of that. I do think if Mitchell Schwartz isn't healthy when they eventually do play, I think it could end very badly because they're going to be able to get quick pressure over and over and over again. But Mitchell Schwartz is a really big difference maker, and he's probably one of the best right tackles in the league. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing, that the Chiefs would win that game. And I do think they're the best team in the AFC because not only are they have the best offense, they actually showed a really well-rounded game by contributing in all three phases, special teams, defense, and then also offensively against the Broncos.
Yeah, if you have those weapons offensively, especially those pass catchers going against that secondary, I think it's a huge mismatch. With or without Mitchell Schwartz, I think they're still going to be able to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. But if you remember the Super Bowl, he was under duress the entire time. He was under pressure almost every single play, and he escaped those pressures. He avoided those pressures. He turned negatives into positives. He turned chicken shit into chicken soup really easily because he can extend the play, because he doesn't go down easily. He is a big boy. He does have that big bend to him to where he can escape out of the pocket and break an arm tackle and keep his eyes downfield. But he is at his best, or he is at he's most potent when he's able to run the ball for first downs, like we've seen the last couple weeks when he's been forced to. He will extend a drive and extend plays just simply with his feet, even though he isn't. He's no Lamar Jackson, and I will even go as far to say I don't think he's a Josh Allen in terms of running the ball, but he gets those smart yards whenever he has to, and will continuously extend the play. Now, you're saying, against that secondary, I mean, outside of Mike Hilton, they really, like you said, Mike Hilton and Minkah, I mean, they have some liabilities in the back end of that defense. So as to where KC has been missing, a majority of their cornerbacks all year and really haven't skipped a beat because of the fact that you just have to you're going to have to try and outscore them anyways. And then you have Tyrann Mathieu, the honey badger who can make plays back there. And they do have some ballers, but they have been, they're down to, I think, just Rashad Breeland, who just came back from injury a couple weeks ago. So they're not even at full capacity or at, full strength yet. And let's just see. I can't wait to see what happens when they have, Lev Bell fully ingrained in the offense, what that's going to look like. Are we going to see a resurgence, the 2018 Lev Bell? Or are we going to see, or 2017 Lev Bell, I guess, 2016 Lev Bell? Or is he past his prime? And that's going to be something to be seen. The other team on this list is the Baltimore Ravens. And, they took a huge step forward just this past week by trading for Unique Ngakoue, which I still don't understand how you trade a second for Unique Ngakoue, and then a couple weeks later you trade a third, or you get a third back. It's not how building a franchise works. I don't know what they were doing, but I do love me some Rick Spielman, so I will not question him on that. But they're getting better. They've continuously gotten better defensively. Patrick Queen is playing lights out. I do think that any given Sunday they can beat any team in the NFL. But the way Lamar Jackson has not been able to evolve into more of a passing quarterback, not saying it has to be a pocket passer, but by no means can you just run the ball with your quarterback a la Cam Newton and New England Patriots and expect to win games. It just does not happen. So, unless he runs for 200 yards, I don't see him, being able to solely rely on his legs to beat a Steelers this next week, or to beat a KC come playoff time, or the Titans, for that matter, who beat them last playoffs. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the Baltimore Ravens, and can they make that leap into this conversation if they are to beat the Steelers this next weekend?
I do think they can make that leap. They have the defense to do so. Like you said, Marlon Humphrey, all their tools out there, Patrick Queen, everybody they got. It's a really, really good defense that can really stick with almost anybody other than the Chiefs, it seems like, because the Chiefs are just a really bad matchup for them logistically. Patrick Mahomes feasts on those blitzes and those aggressive style defenses. So it's kind of a really bad matchup. But against anybody else, like the Steelers, for example, I think it's a really hard defense to play against. And I think that, like you said, any given Sunday, Lamar Jackson can just turn it on and be lights out, throwing the ball, running the ball, the whole 9 yards. But it is really just a consistency thing with this offense as a whole, because even running the ball, they're not as effective. Passing the ball, they're not as effective, like you said. So it's going to be important for them and Greg Roman to really evolve as a whole, and maybe find a way to make it a little easier on Lamar Jackson throwing the football and give him more easy looks, quick reads, and things like that, versus just hey, we're going to run the ball, and that's going to be our identity.
Yeah, I do not understand how they add J.K. Dobbins to the backfield and then they get worse as a rushing team. I thought J.K. Dobbins would have taken the lead back role, but then they still would have used a running back by committee approach. And this team would be, the number one rushing team in the league. And it just has not been the case. Neither of these running backs have really got going. And somehow Gus Edwards is getting more snaps and more carries and more, red zone touches than anybody else, which to me is baffling. From a fantasy perspective, from an owner perspective, from a fan, a scout, you think that J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram are the guys who are going to get you the most yards, but Gus Edwards does run hard, and so I understand that they're trying to, it's part of the identity of the Ravens to play that smash mouth football, and he truly is a smash mouth running back who's really coming into his own. But it's J.K. Dobbins we're talking about here. You just spent a second round pick, paid Mark Ingram last year, use him. If you got him, use him. And so I've been kind of baffled as to the Baltimore Ravens this last year, or this, what they've done this year compared to last. And you're 100% right. It comes down to consistency, and that offense just isn't clicking. And we do have times where Lamar Jackson flashes as a passer, and then we have games where he looks completely, out of place and doesn't look like a starting quarterback, from a arm talent standpoint. So I'm interested to see what they do. This weekend's going to be the big teller. If the Steelers, I'm sure this will be a back and forth game. It'll probably come down to the wire. But if either of these teams come out and smash the other one, then it really is going to dictate these rankings that there's KC and then there's everybody else. But is there any other teams, any superlative teams that you think can jump up into the mix in the AFC, or is it kind of a four-team race at this point?
Keep an eye on the Raiders. I know we talked about them a little bit, and their defense isn't perfect. Obviously, they've got really young talent outside, and in that front seven, especially at linebacker, they aren't all that great. I mean, they do have some decent pass rushers on the edge, but down the middle, they do struggle a bit. But offensively, with Derek Carr playing the way he is, Josh Jacobs still looking good. I know they struggled against that Buccaneers defense, which is fantastic. But I do think that that's a team that can surprise at least one team in the wild card and take the next and take that step where they can be like, all right, you have to be worried about playing us. Like, we're not an easy out. So I think that's a team to keep an eye on throughout the season. And, like, Derek Carr has been playing really well. So it's something to keep an eye on.
Derek Carr's been playing outstanding, much better than people have been giving him credit for. I know you've only been here for a year, but I've been like a Raiders defender / apologist for God knows how long, since basically they traded Khalil Mack. Even though I didn't agree with the pick at time, I tried to make sense of it and play devil's advocate. And I've been getting hammered by the Blitz team ever since. And so any chance I get to rub it in just even ever so slightly, I'm going to. And Derek Carr really has been playing, I mean, outstanding. He's got 112.8 QBR. You know, he's passing for, 287 a game, which is damn near impossible. He's always been this, 200-yard passer, who never can get into the threes. He's already had a couple 300-yard games, 13 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So I'm right there with you. I think they're going to be a wild card team. I don't think there's any chance that they catch KC. Even if they do beat them again, which, again, they are a perfect matchup to beat them, especially because you have this offensive trio, minus Derek Carr. You have this trio of Josh Jacobs, Henry Ruggs, and Darren Waller. Darren Waller being the guy who eats up the middle. Henry Ruggs is the guy who stretches the defense. And then you have Josh Jacobs, who you can't load the box up against while he's smashing through your defense, because then you're leaving either Darren Waller open or you're leaving the top off the defense for Henry Ruggs to then feast, and we've seen that with KC. Typically the way you've played the Raiders, especially this last year, before they had speed, before they even had wide receivers, really this last year they didn't have anybody as a threat. This year, Nelson Aguilar is coming to his own. You've got, Darren Waller having another great season, but then the big thing has been Henry Ruggs. So it's kind of a pick your poison, because as soon as you try to shut down one facet of this offense, the other two are going to feast. And so I'm right there with you. I do think that this is the year the Raiders really insert themselves. Last week, is one thing. Obviously, the team's banged up. They've got players missing. Jonathan Abrams is the staple of that defense, kind of the heart and soul of that defense. And then they also have Trent Brown, one of the best tackles in the NFL, out. And you're talking about a Bucs defense that is playing lights out football right now, especially when it comes to that front four and them getting after the pass rush, or giving after the quarterback, which they did. And Derek Carr was uncomfortable, but he didn't have a bad game by any sense of the imagination. He wasn't making mental mistakes, wasn't really turning the ball over, or the few turnovers weren't necessarily his fault. I would kind of take this last game with a grain of salt. They're sitting at 3-3. There's quite a few teams ahead of them right now, but they could easily, especially they're hitting the home stretch of their schedule, and it's going to lighten up a big chunk. I know they played the Bills, then KC, then the Bucs, and now they've got the Browns and I think Giants and a few easy teams now on the schedule that they could easily win and start racking up these wins, moving into the wild card race. So I'm interested to see, but we got to move on into the NFC. I'm glad we pretty much all agreed right there. You in the same boat as me? Do you have those four teams ranked in the same spots?
Yeah, I'd have those four teams in the same spots roughly, and then I'd probably throw, just a little side note, I'd probably throw the Bills in at 5, in there because I think the Bills do have a really good football team. I think it's just more just polishing up that offense with Josh Allen.
I believe I do, yeah. So I have Buffalo at 8 overall on my power rankings, and so yeah, they would be the 5th team, and then I think the Raiders are at 9, the Buffalo's at 8, Baltimore's at 7. So it's a close race. It's a tight race in the AFC.
Oh yeah.
And the NFC, not so much. So I although it is a tight race, I don't think it's a clear-cut team right now. I'm personally gonna say it. I've been saying it for weeks now. I don't understand how teams, how ESPN still to this day has the Seattle Seahawks and the Green Bay Packers ranked above the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just put a whooping on the Green Bay Packers and then just put a whooping on a team who put a whooping on the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know that math never actually adds up. But for me, it's just when you have the 32nd ranked defense, when this defense is giving up more yards in 6 games than the entire league is given up in 7. I think all but one team that you could say that. I think the Cowboys have an equally bad defense. It's just bad.
They're pretty bad.
Their defense, Atlanta's defense, Cowboys defense, and Seattle Seahawks defense is basically just a turnstile at every position. It is downright awful. And Seattle Seahawks have no form of a pass rush. Their secondary has been atrocious. They do have some ballers on that defense. They have 2 guys by the name of Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams who are arguably the best at their position. But I would probably say that minus the safety position, the Bucs have the Seattle Seahawks beat in basically every positional group possible. The Bucs are the best defense, arguably 1A, 1B, best defense in the NFL. Seattle Seahawks are the worst defense in the NFL. Bucs have a better offensive line. Bucs have a better running back group. They have better wide receivers. They have better tight ends. They have better defensive line. They have 2 better linebackers, although I think Bobby Wagner is amazing. I think Levante David has been right there on par with him for the last few years, and it's just because of the fact that nobody's been talking about Levante David because of the team he's been on. Now Brady gets there. He finally gets his well overdue spotlight, and I mean from a statistical standpoint is having again an incredible year, a better year than most linebackers in the league. But then he might even be getting outperformed by Devin White. So for me, the only thing that you could say is that Russell Wilson is better than Tom Brady at this point in their careers. But that's not saying much because Tom Brady's, as of right now, statistically the second best quarterback in the NFL. He's the only one. He's second to Russell Wilson in touchdowns. He's got less turnovers. Russell Wilson had a really bad game this last week. And Tom Brady had a few bad games to start the season, but has looked damn good ever since. And so if you extended out the last 5 weeks, including the first 2 weeks, but if you extended the last 5 weeks out to finish the season on the pace he's on in those last 5 games, he's going to have his second best statistical season. I think it's 44 touchdowns, 4,600 yards. He's on par right now to have one of his best seasons ever. So I will say this. I do think Tom Brady he's not that Tom Brady's back. Tom Brady never left. And even I was one of those people who was saying that his arm talent had diminished, but it wasn't his arm talent. It was his surrounding talent. You put this in front of him, you put these weapons around him, and he's going to feast. And that's why the Bucs are the number 2 seed overall, but the number 1 team in the NFC for me personally.
Yeah, I would say they're number 1. I think if they play, and this is going to be – the NFL is a matchup league, so before I get destroyed for this, I just want to make sure I talk this through. NFL is a matchup league. Teams match up differently to other teams, regardless to where they're ranked or not, especially in my head. So the Hawks are not a great matchup offensively to defensively for the Bucs. The Bucs like to blitz heavy, play lots of man coverage with Carlton Davis and their other corner that I can't name off the top of my head right now. And they've done very well. Yeah, they've done a really good job of it. But covering DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are completely different things. So I think that game would end up being a shootout just because the Hawks defense is absolutely terrible. And I cannot bet against Russell Wilson at this point in the year. Yeah, he had a bad game against the Cardinals. made a few uncharacteristic decisions, especially that interception to what's his name at the end of the game. That was just, he looked rattled by the rush, expected in the blitz, didn't think he'd be there. But the Bucs are the more complete team overall. 100% agree with you. So right now they're the best team in the NFC. I do think that if they matched up, it'd be a really close game with the Hawks edging them out. But overall, I think the Bucs are the better team. And I know that's a weird way to put it, but that's just the way I see it look right now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have shared that same opinion, that the magic that is Dangerous and the way he's been able to cook and feast this season has been it's been outstanding. It's been above MVP caliber. It's been above what we've ever seen from Russell Wilson. Obviously, he's never had the amount of wide receiver talent in DK and Tyler Lockett. I'm right there with you. I do think that Tyler Lockett is, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He's definitely probably the most underrated wide receiver in the NFL from a route tree standpoint, from a catchability. His hands are super underrated. His route running super underrated. His deep speed's underrated because of the fact that he now plays with DK Metcalf when he used to be the guy that took the top of the defense off for Doug Baldwin. And now, now he's the Doug Baldwin in this offense. And as much as I do want to say that would be a great matchup, Carlton Davis has been a top 5 cover corner this year in terms of man coverage. And Jamal Dean does also run a 4.3 and is tall and lengthy and physical, and I think matches up very well against them. Do I think that they get beat? Yes, I think that they get beat. They get beat every game, once or twice, and give up a big play. It'll happen. But for everyone to assume that Russell Wilson will be able to put an entire team on his back and make, 35, 40 points worth of magic happen against that defense with that offensive line and their inability to block, and the way that the Seattle Seahawks have to, basically Russell Wilson has to hold on to that ball for as long as he can because they play a lot of they run a lot of deeper routes. It takes a while for the 9 route to develop. He can't just chuck it. So he's going to have to hold on to that ball. There's going to be linebackers and there's going to be edge guys in his face. And then you're telling me that at the same time, you're going to give Tom Brady the most amount of time that he'll have all season long or against all 31 other teams when it comes to time in the pocket, because they have absolutely nobody right now who can get after the quarterback. I mean, it's probably the worst front 4 I think I've ever seen or that I can remember. I think they're under 3 seconds is their pressure rate right now, which is just terrible. It's the worst in the league. So for me, I think that there's no way any defense stops Russell Wilson. But there's a few defenses that'll slow him down quite a bit. And then those same defenses or those same teams feature offenses that will light them up. So I think if Seattle was to play a Steelers, Seattle was to play a KC, Seattle was to play a Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think it's quite a bit of a wide margin of victory compared to what people really think. Like, let's put this in perspective. Seattle's only won against 1-win teams. Like, the only team that they've faced with a winning record, or not with a winning record technically, but with a legitimate record, they lost to this last week against Arizona. So they haven't beat a team that's had more than 1 win. They've only played one team that's had more than 1 win, and they lost to them. So I am kind of on the bandwagon that if Russell Wilson faced an even better defense than he faced the other week, I know it's a divisional game and they all play each other really tight. I think it would be a lot worse performance by Russell Wilson. I think his You still there? Can you hear me, Zach?
Yeah, I can. I'm starting to hear you again.
Yeah, sorry,
we
froze up there for a second. All right. So in terms of the Bucks, there's the Bucks, there's the Seahawks. How far away are the Green Bay Packers? How far away are the New Orleans Saints? And do we get to that, or do you think that either of those teams could surpass the Seattle Seahawks and or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers before the season's over?
Green Bay maybe. Green Bay has a decent defense. They're not great. They struggle to rush the passer right now. Zadarius Smith and their other Smith, Preston Smith, have really struggled to rush the passer this year. They haven't been as effective as they were last year. But their offense is still pretty good. I know they struggled against the Bucs like most teams do. But overall, they still have Aaron Rodgers, who usually plays lights out. And their offensive weapons, surprisingly, have been stepping up comparatively. They still haven't played A.J. Dillon, which that pick makes no sense to me whatsoever. But they still have the weapons that are stepping up and making plays. So that offense is still really good. I think they might be able to surpass the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks offense is much better just because of the weapons on the outside. When you have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, it's tough to pass. It's tough to have a better duo of weapons. But I do think that the Green Bay Packers have that chance. And then the Saints, I'm shockingly low on the Saints. When we talk about the Saints, I just always think of, Drew Brees has no arm left. You see that week in and week out. He's playing off of anticipation and what he sees like really quick. And he's one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league, so that's not an issue. But he's just not able to push the ball downfield. Jameis Winston is probably their strongest arm quarterback right now. And the fact that they keep using Taysom Hill just makes me hate them so much because it's wasted snaps on the field most of the time. You may get a good play every 1 out of like 10 snaps when you could legit just give the ball to Alvin Kamara and let him do something with it. And you're more likely to have a better performance from that play. But they consistently try to give Taysom Hill the ball. And that defense just hasn't been playing as well. I mean, they still have some tools. They have Marshawn Lattimore, who I'm lower on than most, but he's still a really good corner. And they have Cameron Jordan, all these different tools, and yet they still struggle to beat these not great teams. The Panthers, they almost lost to. If they had moved the ball forward a couple more yards, they would have lost that game or at least gone to OT. They almost lost to the Chargers with Justin Herbert, who I love so far this year. And they've just really struggled to really get anything going offensively. Defensively, they struggled. So they're probably the lowest. They're the second worst, like 5 and up team, or the second worst good-looking team. The Bears are the worst good record team out there. But I'd say the Saints are a little bit better than them, but they're not looking great in my eyes for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think the Saints still have some fight in them. I think the Bears, and what's funny is I was doing the math. Even with their first loss, second loss? Second loss now. Yeah, second loss now.
Second loss.
I still have them losing 5 more games in the second half of the season and going 9-7.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into in the final segment a little bit more. But for me, I think the Chicago Bears are the Green Bay Packers of last year. Their stats or their records is not going to be reminiscent, or it's not going to translate into how good they are talent-wise. I think the Bears are not that talented of a team. I think they beat the Bucs on a short week without travel. While the Bucs were banged up and without, with a hobbled Mike Evans and no Chris Godwin and a banged up Scotty Miller and no Leonard Fournette and Vita Vea went down and no O.J. Howard that week, and it was like one thing after another after another after another. And they got a good win against a really good team. But I do think that they are vulnerable. I don't think that they're the team we think they are. How are you going to be, 5-2, 4-2 right now, 5-2, and have a negative point differential? Like, that is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, when you're averaging, your defense can't put up more than 20 points. You're not going to be able to win against top talent. I don't care how good their defense is. And their defense is good, but we seen last night, it's obviously not that good because teams can still score on them, regardless if they have Khalil Mack getting after the quarterback and creating strip sack fumbles or not. It's going to be a tough team. I do think that the New Orleans Saints are still the toughest team for the Bucs to face. One, because of the familiarity between the two teams. They did beat the Bucs in Week 1. I think the Bucs beat themselves that game. And if they didn't give up 120 yards in penalties or the interceptions, it would have been a different game. So I do think that the Bucs will beat them in their second matchup coming up here in a couple weeks. But if there is a team that could surpass Tampa Bay at this point, even with Seattle's very, very light, easy schedule, I think outside of their division, I think maybe the Buffalo Bills are like the toughest team they faced this year. I don't think they have much competition whatsoever on their schedule. So they're going to have kind of a shoe-in for even possibly that 1 or 2 seed. I think they have the 2 seed at the very worst, all but locked up. So the Bucs are going to have to win those games. Every game is important, but especially against a Seattle Seahawks who kind of have a cakewalk to the playoffs this season. If New Orleans can squeak out a couple wins and beat the Bucs, then they are going to be the team representing the NFC South, and the Bucs are going to be having to fight for a wild card. I just don't see that happening with how well-rounded the Bucs are.
No.
Outside of that, I think if there's a team that I got to throw in through the superlatives, I probably would say the Arizona Cardinals and or the San Francisco 49ers. I think the Niners are actually, once they get rolling, they are going to be a team to beat. They are going to have, maybe I do think that they can beat the Rams again. I do think they can beat the Seahawks, and I think that they'll beat the Cardinals. To get evened out with them in their seasonal series. I would lean on the fact that the Arizona Cardinals still have Kyler Murray, and that's been the biggest factor. But if Kyler Murray can't win them every game with the loss of Chandler Jones, their defense has stepped up over the last couple weeks with Chandler Jones being out. But again, I would say lesser talent, at least lesser talent facing the offensive lines they've faced the last 2 weeks. And that's been the big. I think that's definitely paid off in making those defensive linemen look better than they actually are, and that defense better than it actually is. But I would not sleep on the Cardinals or the Niners.
Oh yeah, the Cardinals are definitely one of my favorite teams to watch because Kyler Murray is so much fun to watch. But I mean, even then, Budda Baker on that defense has been playing like the best safety in football. He's been playing lights out. He's got 2 interceptions now after having 0 over his career. Ball production isn't the end-all, be-all for safeties. But the fact that he's now making a difference with plays on the ball makes him look that much better and really highlights his ability to perform, especially under these bright lights of Monday night and Sunday night football. And just Kyler Murray finally, I know the Seahawks defense, we've harped on this, is really bad. But Kyler Murray, once again, getting back into the passing game. He struggled a little bit as a passer this year in making decisions. The team as a whole has been throwing it really short, but to see him start taking deep balls to guys like DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk, albeit against bad defenses, is a good sign because it shows him willing to make those decisions and take those shots that will hopefully translate against better defenses moving forward.
I agree. All right, we'll jump on into the next segment. We have a debate. It has been going on since this time last year. Even when they were still in the same team, it's been, is it Bill? Is it Brady? I think with the amount of victories, the GOAT status that has been on the line, the rift between, the Tom Brady and the New England Patriots franchise over this last year, more so him and Bill Belichick, the debate of, who deserves more credit has been probably the biggest, I would almost say the biggest clickbait debate in the NFL right now or over this last year. And so, I hate to be one of those people, but if I can get a chance to talk about Tom Brady right now, I am going to take that advantage as a Bucs fan. And then especially with the fact that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers might have had a slight, ever so hand in the demise of the Patriots dynasty just makes me feel all that much better. Like it's literally winning the Super Bowl and watching your team fall. It's like watching your ex-girlfriend get dumped. Like it's just something about it, it makes you feel bad, but not really. Like it makes you just feel great inside. And you hate to admit it and you hate to be shallow like that, but God, I feel so good watching the Patriots lose while the Bucs win with Tom Brady. So with that being said, has the start to the season where, we're 7 weeks in, coming up on week 8 here, starting tomorrow, the next day, 2 days from now. Has Bill already lost this debate? Is this over? With Tom Brady playing as well as he has, Cam Newton playing as bad as he has, is this debate over, or is this way too early to tell?
I don't think the debate's over yet. I think, first off, Bill has always been a more defensive coach. He's handled the defense mostly while allowing guys like Josh McDaniels to really handle that offense. And I'd argue he's still coaching a pretty good defense. I understand they've struggled a little bit against like the Niners and the Seahawks. They really struggled. I think that was more matchup based. But they're still 12th in points per game allowed, 23.8 points, 4th in takeaways with 12, 9th and third down percentage with 37.7. Just so you guys know, I'm not cherry picking stats. They are 22nd in DVOA, which is not very good. And they are 5th worst in yards per play at 6.1. I think that has a lot to do with the big plays allowed against the Seahawks and the 49ers. But, I mean, they're really the only team that's really shut down the Chiefs so far. And they could have won that game with a healthy, possibly Cam Newton, if he had played like he did the previous week against the Seahawks, not the current one. But I think it's mostly the reason they're losing is mostly Josh McDaniels hasn't adapted well to not having Tom Brady and running that style of offense, and inadequate quarterback and wide receiver play. The wide receivers aren't playing great, and then the quarterback play just overall, whether it's Jarrett Stidham or Cam Newton or Brian Hoyer, has all been really bad other than one game. So I think really it's not an indictment on Bill. If we're going to talk about Bill's flaws, right now we're talking about his flaws as a GM, whether it's drafting, taking guys like N'Keal Harry over DK Metcalf, or ignoring some obvious flaws in your linebacking core and at the wide receiver position. And overall, just that GMing aspect, we should be critiquing more than his coaching job, because he's still a great coach, whether you want to admit it or not, because he's coaching a pretty good defense despite a lot of COVID-19 opt-outs.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. As much as I would love to write this in stone just yet, I think this debate is going to continue to go on for years and years. Probably past, I'm sure Bill Belichick will still be at the helm of the New England Patriots long after Tom Brady retires. So if he comes in and drafts a rookie quarterback next year and they go win the Super Bowl, then it re-sparks and reignites the debate. But as of right now, without a doubt, I would say Tom Brady is currently winning this debate. I think it's without a doubt he's winning it as of right now, and he's got a huge head start or advantage lead, whatever you want to call it, on Bill Belichick. The Patriots haven't been haven't been sub 500 or haven't been 2-4, 2-3 since Tom Brady. Since the last time they didn't have Tom Brady. All these stats, you can go back and look and see that all of these lows haven't happened since Tom Brady, wasn't there back in 2001, 2000, I think is when he started. He started 2001?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's when he stepped in.
And so you have Cam Newton, who's 2-3 as a starter, 2 touchdowns, and throwing the ball. I think he's got another 5 rushing, so he's got 7 touchdowns to 8 turnovers. It's not that good. As much as people want to say he came out hot, he did. But then also we could say that the defense that he played up against did not know what was coming. They were not ready for a Cam Newton offense. And then a week happened, and then teams got a little bit of film, and then that shit got shut down real quick. And that running mobile Cam Newton basically got stopped by having a DN spy on him or having an outside linebacker spy on him, or kind of hold him inside the pocket, force him to be a pocket passer. And it's seeming to be a lot more of a weak spot or weak point than I expected, because Cam Newton week 1 did look good throwing the ball. Cam Newton week 2 did look good throwing the ball. And then he played the Raiders, and even though they had a substantial win on the Raiders, he did not play that way. He played well at that game and then got COVID, and it's been a downward spiral since then. I do think that we're going to be looking at this and judging Cam Newton's performance versus Brady's performance, and then that's going to determine this. I don't think that should be the case. It should be about how well Bill Belichick performs with his surrounding talent versus how well Tom Brady performs with his surrounding talent. One is completely depleted of talent, and then one is, completely surrounded by talent. Like, let's be honest. At what point is Tom Brady's number one weapon? How far down the list for the Bucs do you have to go? You can rattle off every Buccaneers starter before you would name, Wes Welker or James White or any of those guys as a viable option. Like, those guys wouldn't even see the field on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. So,
no.
What are you gonna do? It's too easy for Tom Brady to win this debate right now. But like you said, like we both said, we've got a ways to go before anybody will know exactly what's going to happen with this. But as of right now, the Patriots are desperate, and I haven't seen that. I can't remember this. I'm 30 years old, and I can't say I remember ever seeing the Patriots in a desperate situation before.
Yeah, no, neither have I. It's really weird to see. And like we said, I don't think it's Bill's fault. I think there's more of an indictment on Josh McDaniels, first of all, for not adapting his offense really at all throughout these first 7 weeks. And then Cam Newton, the rest of the quarterbacks just haven't played well. And it's just been really rough to see as a Cam Newton fan myself. I've grown up watching him. I've been a fan of him since he joined the Panthers. And it's been really, really rough to watch. So I'm hoping that we get a chance to see him play better because I really want him to. And once we get to this next section coming up here, I think we can really take a look at what I think they can do to fix it. But right now, I don't think this is Bill's fault. I think it's mostly the offense and Josh McDaniels. And I think this debate won't be settled for at least maybe 2 or 3 more years.
See, that is where I disagree with you. This is Bill's fault because he is the GM of a team, and they sat back and did not do anything. Like, Cam Newton could have got swooped up at any time, and they would have been stuck with Jarrett Stidham, and then we would all honestly be talking about this season. I still have a little bit of faith that Jarrett Stidham could be a quality starting quarterback in the NFL or could be a Patriot starting quarterback. I like Jarrett Stidham. I got to watch him throw at the Senior Bowl. He was the best quarterback there. I still think he's one of the better He was one of the better quarterbacks coming out of that draft class that year. I have faith in Stidham. I have more faith in Stidham throwing the ball in the Patriots offense than I do Cam Newton throwing the ball in the Patriots offense. Let me at least say that and be very, very clear on that one. But yeah, I guess we can transition into this next one because we were kind of overlapping these, and that is, after the Cam Newton benching this Sunday, is it time for us to see, or is it time for the New England Patriots to see what they have with Jarrett Stidham? And if not this week, how long is Cam Newton's leash?
Well, so first off, Cam Newton is the better option for an offense personally. I know he's not throwing the ball very well right now. I think it's mostly him pressing. He's even said it in press conferences. They've talked about it on all their press conferences. He doesn't feel comfortable right now, and he's pressing, and he admittedly knows it's his fault, and he's not playing well. I'm not saying he is, but I don't think this offense is serving him very well. When you go back and watch his Panthers tape, his college tape, and all that, he works best when the offense is spread out. And there's a lot of space, and he works well in space. He throws well to space. And what the Patriots have been doing is really condensing this offense. They've been running a lot of 2 tight end sets, a lot of under center, all of that stuff, when I really think they should spread it out more and work from the shotgun more. And you saw that a lot against the Seahawks, and that was his best game. I understand it was a bad defense, like we've harped on a lot. But I do think that if they get him more comfortable, he'll step up his game and he'll play better. And I just think Josh McDaniels has to kind of adapt to that. I understand they don't have a lot of weapons, but I think Cam Newton's worked with something similar to this before with Damiere Byrd as his number 1 option, basically, because he's been the best receiver for the Patriots through this time. Julian Edelman's been playing like an old man, to put it lightly. And N'Keal Harry still hasn't really developed enough to be a number 1 weapon. I don't think he's played as bad as some people are saying, but he still hasn't developed enough to be a number one weapon. And I really think that they need to spread it out more versus trying to stick with the run and stick with it and stick with it. I think they need to spread it out more and give Cam Newton more options and maybe just make him more comfortable in the offense. But I do think that if he keeps playing badly, like for this week and maybe next week, I think they give him 2 more weeks, then they'll be forced to switch to Stidham, and I still don't think that'll go well.
I think it's a 1 more week, and for the simple fact that it seems like they've mundaned or dumbed down the offense quite a bit. They haven't stuck to their guns in terms of running him as heavy as they have. I don't know if it's the fact that teams are just stopped giving them those looks, and so they're forced to throw the ball more. But it seems like it's been kind of an elementary school offense, hand the ball off, play action, simple stuff that isn't as elaborate as what I think Cam Newton would be able to handle in 6 or 8 weeks from now, in terms of actually knowing the offense and being comfortable. We see it with Tom Brady. Like, if we're saying, give Tom Brady time, then we have to be able to give Cam Newton time. And Cam Newton came in way later than Tom Brady did. So it's understandable that he's going to need time to develop. But I do think that the offense is a little bit more sophisticated, probably runs a little bit more smoothly in terms of the offensive system. Like, any quarterback or any coach should be able to cater a play calling to the strengths, but within their philosophy, within the system that they are comfortable, calling plays. Like, it's like, to put it in perspective, it's like Madden. If you go and you've been playing with this one playbook for God knows how long, and you switch it up, you're gonna be terrible. Like, you're gonna lose to the kid that you've beat 1,000,000 times over because you're not comfortable calling plays with this playbook. It's the same thing for Cam Newton, and it's the same thing for Josh McDaniels. I do think Josh McDaniels is an offensive genius. I do think Bill Belichick is a defensive guru. But if you're not comfortable calling these plays on a full-time basis, it's one thing to have a week's worth of these plays ready, and you have these aces up the sleeve to call and dish out on 4th and 1 or short yardage situations. But it feels like they got away from that quite a bit from watching the games over the last few weeks, or it just hasn't been working as well. And then that has led them to have to play more of a generic offense, a simplistic offense, and teams have been able to take advantage of it. I just think that if Stidham's been in the playbook for, has over a year's advantage on Cam Newton. Stidham looked really good last year in the preseason, has had these hiccups and has not been able to come in as a starter, as the clear starter. He's stepped in and thrown interceptions, kind of forcing the ball. I just want to see what he's got. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. This year I did say that I still thought that if especially if Cam Newton wasn't healthy, that Stidham was going to get more starts or play more games than Cam Newton has, and that's still a possibility. I don't think that is going to come to fruition. I'm not really begging or asking for that to come to fruition, but I do think if Cam Newton has a game like he had last week one more time, then he will be benched, and the Patriots will basically be in either full-on tank mode or at least seeing what they have roster-wise. I mean, there's already talks of this morning that they're looking to trade the 2019 Defensive Player of the Year, in Stephon Gilmore, which I think is crazy and is probably a little bit of rumors up the mill.
Yeah.
But if they're already chalking it up, I mean, that's the thing is he went from playing, a insanely good game or insanely good season to he's having an insanely bad season in comparison. If we're grading on a curve, it's an A to an F, not even close. He's been getting picked on this year compared to years prior. So if they're going to chalk it up and tank it for the rest of the season, they might as well, try and cut bait. Or if they're not going to cut bait with players, then they need to go get Cam Newton a weapon. They need to go, kick the tires on AJ Green. I hate to say it, maybe kick the tires on Julio Jones because I think that contract's way, way overpriced, and I do think Julio Jones is past his prime and is being paid like a top 5 wide receiver when I don't think he is a top 5 wide receiver anymore. But who knows, maybe a change of scenery will do good for him and finally give Cam Newton a legit big-bodied receiving threat that he's always needed. He's never, ever, ever remotely close to had anything compared to a Julio Jones throughout his career, and I think that would pay dividends. Will it happen? No, but it would be nice to see somebody go over there.
It would.
You know, I mean, I made this joke the other day on the happy hour. You know, like how many times have the Patriots went and got a washed up has-been Bengals receiver? Like they did it with Mohamed Sanu. You know, I know he was an Atlanta Falcon, but I mean he was a Bengal at one point. And then they went and did it with AJ Green before, you know, or with not AJ Green, with Ocho Cinco before. They might as well try it with AJ Green. You know, try swing at it 3 times. See if all 3 are fails. Who knows?
Oh, yeah.
But speaking of Cam Newton and weapons, former Cam Newton weapon Christian McCaffrey for your Carolina Panthers is coming back this week. Carolina Panthers are now went from a 2-game skid to a 3-game winning streak to now another 2-game skid and sit at 3-4, I believe. They are on the cusp of the playoffs. They're about a game and a half back right now, and they did look good. I mean, they did. You know, they've looked good against a lot of teams. They've been in every game. You know, the defense, it kind of had a rough go at the season and has kind of come full circle. The pass rush hasn't really been there for the Panthers, but they have been in every game. Teddy Two Gloves has had them in every single game. And Christian McCaffrey, I think, you know, the 7-point loss 2 weeks ago to the 3-point loss this last weekend, I do believe that if Christian McCaffrey's in those games, you guys are sitting at, what would it be, 5-2, 6-2 record right now, instead of a 3-4. I really do think you guys would have won both of those games. So I ask you, as our resident Carolina Panthers fan, will the return of Christian McCaffrey be enough for the Panthers to reinsert themselves into the wild card race, or are you guys playing for 2021 already?
Let me say this. I wish we were playing for 2021, but we're not. We're playing to win. And I don't know how much C-Max will be able to affect that. I'm a big part of the running backs are decently replaceable hive. I believe that. I do understand Christian McCaffrey is a very special talent, but Mike Davis has come in and basically replaced that production to some extent and played at a very high level. And I think part of that is they're not forcing touches to Mike Davis. I think when Christian McCaffrey comes in, he demands touches, and that can be kind of a flaw, especially for a young signal caller and Joe Brady. You got to remember, this is his first year as an offensive coordinator, period. So he's going to probably feel a little bit of pressure to give Christian McCaffrey the ball, and I think that might one-dimensionalize this offense a bit. And while it's a good team, I think defensively down the middle, they're still struggling. They struggle at safety. They struggle at inside linebacker. The guy they have, Tahir Whitehead from the Vikings, not playing well at all. They have Derek Brown in the inside at D tackle, but other than that, it's a very weak position group. And their corners, while they've been playing better than expected, are still very young. Dante Jackson is prone to getting beat deep. And their other corner, Rasul Douglas sometimes, and whoever else is out there, can tend to be pretty bad at times. So it's really just a factor of, hey, these guys are playing above their level, and they're getting the coaching staff's doing a great job getting a lot more out of all the guys they have on the roster than they should be. But otherwise, I think this team is still not good enough to make the playoffs. I think they end 7-9. I think they do lose, especially 2 of these next 3 games, and I think they might struggle against Atlanta a little bit. At least they'll probably come back in the fourth quarter like every team does against Atlanta. But real quick before I finish this point, though, I just want to bring up Taylor Moton, their right tackle, playing lights out. He gave 0 pressures to the Saints edge rushers the entire game, played at a fantastic level. He should have been paid before this year. He's going to get a lot of money this next offseason.
So I got the Panthers. When I went through the record, I split all the divisional games, was trying to be nice and split the divisional games. Even though I do think the Bucks should sweep them. I think I might have had the Bucks sweeping them. But anyways, I had them going 9-7, with 2 of those games being, you know, up in the air, could go either way. So 7-9 at worst, 9-7 at best, and I still don't even think, with the way I'm looking at it right now, I went through each schedule for all of the teams that are going to be potentially in the wild card race. Chicago Bears I had going 9-7. San Francisco 49ers, I had them going.
I can't hear you right now. Sorry. Maybe me? Is it me? Oh, there we go.
The Blitz breakdown if there wasn't some type of breakdown technical issue. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know what happened. I don't
Yep.
know why my mic cut out. Brand new mic, and I'm still having these issues. Jeez. All right.
It happens. It happens.
What I was saying. I had. Let me backtrack really quick. I'm sorry if you guys are hearing this twice. I have Chicago Bears at 9-7. I have the Niners at 9-7. I have the Cardinals at 9-7, and the Carolina Panthers at 9-7. The Carolina Panthers beat the Arizona Cardinals, so they have that tiebreaker. They'd have the tiebreaker, or Arizona would have the tiebreaker over the Niners at this point, and then Chicago has the tiebreaker over the Panthers. So it's a complete shit show, jumbled mess. That's basically all I'm getting at. So who knows what could happen? Who knows what the strength of schedule is for all of these teams at the end of the season? Who knows what the tiebreakers will be in terms of teams having wins over who? Who knows? That is why I love the NFL so much. That is why I am such a big fan of this sport, because you never know. Anybody who thinks they're an expert will then go, 8-8 in terms of their predictions, or 7-9 in their predictions. I know my Pick'em's performance has been quite terrible this year.
Mine's been bad.
Oh man, it's been so bad. I've never had this bad of a Pick'em's year before in my life. Like, usually the gut games are the games where I'm just like, all right, nope. I can't even trust my gut right now. I can't even trust my gut.
Nope.
And then when I don't trust my gut, then I should trust my gut. I can't win. I can't pick them to save my life. But Zach, I do want to thank you for tuning in, man. Maybe we can make this more of like a bi-weekly, weekly basis, having you on. I'm looking to start bringing in some more people, some more guests on a regular schedule, because we do still have Rob down for the count right now, and he might be having some big news coming for Mr. Robert Robinson. So stay tuned for that, guys, as we keep you updated with what he's got going on. He'll still be making regular appearances on the show, but will no longer be likely co-hosting for me anymore. So back to the solo mission. But luckily, we have a army of talent at Blitzalytics, specifically guys like Zach Gartin here, who have a eye for scouting and use our scouting templates to basically kick the competition's ass when it comes to scouting and it comes to draft accuracy. That's what Blitzalytics is all about. We're the first company to fully integrate an analytical equation into a pro-style scouting report and use trained scouts such as Zach that have that eagle eye for talent to be able to do that. You kicked butt last year, man, and so you kind of had that fast track to the senior scout position. So I can't thank you enough for both of that. Again, let these people know where they can find you on Twitter.
So at all22_addict, you'll find me. I post a lot. I post a lot of threads, a lot of film clips, a lot of takes. Try to keep it light. Try to keep it fun. So come follow me.
I do love those video clips, man. We're gonna have to get the whole company starting to produce stuff like that. We're gonna have to show them. Show them your way of doing things. It's awesome. So again, go check that out if you guys want to get some film breakdown from our boy Zach. This has been the Blitz Breakdown presented by Blitzalytics.com, where scouting meets analytics and you meet the newest crop of off-field talent. Big shout out to our key sponsor, Key City Brewing. Drink, revel, repeat. And before I get on out of here, I got to plug this bad boy. This is Blitzalytics Prospect Encyclopedia 2020. Zach should be here writing inside the 2020 edition of this one. But we do have a bunch of awesome scouts who wrote prospect write-ups on top 700 players of the last 3 draft classes in the NFL. You can get this at blitzalytics.com/shop. You can get it on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target, basically any store that carries a book. They've got our book. And if you've got our book, then you're probably winning your fantasy league at this point right now. Because all these players, these Brandon Ayuks, these lower level no-name guys, or these Jeff Wilsons, like this last weekend, you would have known to start them if you would have bought that book. We talk about it. It's in there. Literally word for word, I talked about 3 touchdown performances of Jeff Wilson, and then it came to fruition this week. So we're gurus. It's what we do. Thank you guys again very much. Appreciate it. Blitz out.
Smarter.
Ready or not, here I come. You can't hide.
So too grows our fandom. Start miles ahead. The 2020 Prospect Encyclopedia. September. Available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and Blitzalytics.com.